Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. We have a good show for you today. The White House condemns the shooting in Minnesota that killed 2 children. Here, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt respond to our NTD White House correspondent Iris Tao. Fed Governor Lisa Cook files a lawsuit today challenging President Trump's attempt to fire her. She calls the effort unprecedented and illegal. Alligator Alcatraz could be shut down. A judge makes a ruling against the immigrant detention center. How Borders Are Tom Homan responds. A new bill signed to prevent foreign adversaries from owning land in Texas. How does it address the risk of foreign land ownership, and what does it prohibit? Who does it affect? The Defense Department is barring Chinese nationals from servicing its cloud system. Could the CCP have gained insight into Pentagon's systems? A massive Russian attack on Ukraine kills at least 15 overnight. The EU summons Russia's top diplomat after strikes damage an EU building. We've learned more details.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday. Local hospital officials in Minneapolis provided an update on patients wounded in yesterday's shooting. The head of Emergency Medical Services praised the brave actions of both teachers and students.
We currently have 9 patients that were involved in the shooting yesterday. 6 of those patients are in satisfactory condition. 5 of those patients are children. We have 2 patients in serious condition, 1 adult and 1 child, and we have 1 child in critical condition.
I think there's a lot of maybe unrecognized heroes in this event, along with the children that were protecting other children, which is really amazing to hear about. I might be saying too much, but we had 1 kid that covered up another kid and took a shotgun blast to his back and things like that, and they were helping each other out. So the teachers were amazing. The teachers were, getting shot at. They were protecting the kids.
Meanwhile, Minneapolis Chief of Police Brian O'Hara said the suspect harbored hate and intended to harm as many people as he could. O'Hara said he believed part of the shooter's motive was notoriety.
There's absolutely no question that this shooter intended to terrorize those children, those parishioners, the members of the school staff that were in that building, as well as their parents and the larger community here. What we have found are really just hundreds of pieces of evidence that we continue to go through with our investigators, with the help of the FBI and all of our law enforcement partners.
O'Hara said earlier that police executed 4 search warrants. Evidence uncovered in the search includes additional writings. The FBI is assisting local authorities in reviewing their content. Officers were also working to obtain search warrants to go through the shooter's electronic devices. Meanwhile, Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve Board member whom President Trump attempted to fire this week, asked a federal court today to declare the president's move unprecedented and illegal. Trump said he was removing her from her role at the central bank due to an allegation of mortgage fraud. Cook asks the court in a lawsuit filed today to rule that Trump's attempt to remove her is unlawful and that she remains an active member of the Federal Reserve. Federal law permits the president to remove Federal Reserve Board members for cause. Cook argues that the fraud allegation isn't cause for removal where it hasn't been proven. Trump said in a social media post on Monday that he had sufficient cause to fire her, citing allegations of mortgage fraud. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said today on Fox News that the CDC is in trouble and needs to be fixed. His remarks come one day after the White House fired CDC Director Susan Monarez. The White House said yesterday that she was fired because she refused to resign. Attorneys for Monarez said the termination was illegal and that she was targeted for refusing to support unscientific directives. Kennedy declined to comment on the specifics of her departure and 4 other top officials. The leadership change comes as Kennedy overhauls COVID vaccine policies. On Wednesday, the Food and Drug Administration ended emergency use authorization for the COVID vaccine, which was issued in 2020 when the outbreak began. The FDA said new COVID vaccines have been approved and will remain available. The White House has fired Surface Transportation Board member Robert Primus. A spokesman said that the railroad regulator did not align with President Trump's agenda. Trump has moved to fire bureaucrats he says are refusing to implement his policy decisions in his second term. The firing comes as railway regulators weigh Union Pacific's proposed $85 billion merger with Norfolk Southern. Primus had said earlier that he rejected his termination, claiming it was illegal. Primus added that he planned to remain on the board. The Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Detention Center in Florida could be shut down. A federal judge in Miami says the closure can proceed. U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams has refused to pause her order requiring the winding down of the center. The federal government is appealing her ruling. They argue that the closure of Alligator Alcatraz would disrupt their ability to enforce immigration laws. Environmental groups sued the detention center over environmental concerns. Civil rights groups filed separate lawsuits over conditions at the facility. The judge says she expects the population of the facility to decline within 60 days through transferring of detainees to other facilities. Borders' Tom Holman reacted to the judge's decision.
It's about 50% full right now. First of all, I disagree with the judge who made the decision. I went down there. I walked through detention areas where these people sleep and live. I saw a clean facility, a well-maintained facility. I went to the medical center and talked to the nurses there on staff, looked at the medical facility. It was great. I even asked, well, if there's a serious situation here, can you handle it? And they can.
Holman also commented on President Trump's efforts to fight crime in major cities. Holman said the campaign has made D.C. a lot safer and that ICE would ramp up operations in cities like Chicago and L.A. He confirmed there are discussions about ICE using a naval base north of Chicago as an operations center, but didn't provide more details. The White House is condemning the shooting at the Minnesota Catholic school yesterday that killed 2 children. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today called the alleged shooter a deranged, evil monster.
What's the administration's message to some concerned parents across the country who might be now worried about their kids' safety in light of the latest incident?
We completely and totally understand the concerns of parents across the country. This tragedy it's heartbreaking. As a parent myself, there are no words to describe just the heartbreak that these families must be enduring, which is why the President and the First Lady have encouraged everyone to continue to pray for these families and these victims. And it's why this administration is focused on removing public safety threats from our communities. And in fact,
the White House says that federal law enforcement are on the ground assisting local law enforcement, and this investigation is ongoing. On the issue of D.C. crime, Leavitt says that since President Trump's intervention, there have been more than 1,283 arrests in D.C. Total crime in D.C. is down 19%, violent crime is down 30%, carjackings down 67%, homicides down 57%, robberies down 40%, motor vehicle thefts are down 32%, assaults with dangerous weapons are down 23%, and property crime is down 18%. The White House also says a new CDC director will be announced soon, after Trump fired Susan Monarez last night when she refused to resign.
her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission. A new replacement will be announced by either the president or the secretary very soon.
The White House also reacted to a judge's decision to shut down Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Detention Center. Leavitt says the Trump administration will comply with court orders but continue to fight the decision in court. She emphasizes that the closure puts an unnecessary burden on DHS. The White House also announced that President Trump will be traveling to New York City to address the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, September 23rd. Meanwhile, cybersecurity threats linked to China are once again in the spotlight. More than 20 agencies have signed onto a new cyber advisory. It urges companies and governments to actively search for cyber threats. Here are the details on the new report.
Cyber and intelligence agencies from the U.S. and more than 20 other countries put out a joint warning Wednesday. They outlined how Chinese government-backed hackers broke into major American telecom networks last year and urged companies to start looking for signs of that same activity. The FBI now says this campaign has breached more than 80 countries, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. The joint advisory links the campaign uncovered last year, known as Salt Typhoon, to 3 Chinese companies, including 2 never before publicly named. The head of FBI Cyber Division says the incident shows the need for closer cooperation with international partners to detect and stop these attacks as early as possible. At the same time, the Pentagon is addressing a different China-related cybersecurity risk involving Microsoft. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the company used Chinese engineers to service sensitive Pentagon cloud systems. The Obama-era program called Digital Escorts has been running for almost a decade.
For nearly a decade, Microsoft has used Chinese coders, remotely supervised by U.S. contractors, to support sensitive DoD cloud systems. The program was designed to comply with contracting rules, but it exposed the department to unacceptable risk. I mean, if you're thinking America first and common sense, this doesn't pass either of those tests.
Hegseth says the Department of Defense has launched 2 investigations, one by outside auditors and another in-house, to determine whether Chinese workers embedded malicious code. Hegseth also said Chinese coders would no longer service the Pentagon's cloud systems.
The use of Chinese nationals to service Department of Defense cloud environments, it's over. We've issued a formal letter of concern to Microsoft documenting this breach of trust, and we're requiring a third-party audit of Microsoft's digital escort program, including the code and the submissions by Chinese nationals. This audit will be free of charge for U.S. taxpayers.
In July, Microsoft said it has stopped using China-based engineers. Meanwhile, cyber officials say China's espionage campaigns are not slowing down. They're warning U.S. allies and American companies to lock down their systems before the next breach.
Joining us now to discuss the Defense Department barring Chinese nationals to service its cloud systems is China analyst John Pelson, author of the book Wireless Wars. Good afternoon, John. Thank you for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here.
All right, so to start off, I'm wondering, can you tell us what exactly is the Pentagon's cloud system? What's on there? How does that tie into national security?
Well, this is not a classified network. From my understanding, this is sensitive communications that are important for the operations of the Pentagon and contain sensitive information, but this is not the top classified network that we're talking about here. Still, this is something that has to be kept secure from enemies and rivals around the world.
So on that point, John, what were these engineers tasked to do? Why is it a security concern? I mean, could they potentially have, what could they have done potentially if they had any nefarious intent?
Yeah, first of all, if Chinese contractors supporting the U.S. Department of Defense did not inject malicious code into the system, they should be fired. This is what they do. This is what they're charged with doing. And the idea that we had someone from a rival nation given any kind of access, deliberately gave them access to our networks, is just appalling. The idea that they were managed with the kind of the handlers, is a joke, because these are top-notch coders that are working in China, and these are kind of contracted escorts to keep an eye on them, and they're certainly not capable of keeping them out.
So I don't want to assume what you're saying, but could you clarify if you're thinking that the CCP could have gained insight into Pentagon systems?
Well, here's the type of information you can get, even if you don't have access to, quote unquote, classified systems. There's something called patterns of life. There's information that can be gleaned about people that are communicating with each other, where they are, what they're working on. Maybe you don't get a look at the content, which can't be discussed over a non-classified system. when you see who's emailing who or who's storing documents or meeting with whom because it's on their calendars, for example, that's really, really important and vital information to a rival. So while this does not imply that China was providing contractors for classified systems, which would be, inconceivable, even giving them access to anything about the operations in the Pentagon is invaluable information. It's this idea of metadata, where you don't see the actual content of a communication, for example, but you know who's talking to whom, what are they discussing, how many people are involved. You build networks, you build inferences that are really the lifeblood of an intelligence agency.
I mean, going off of what you're saying, John, why did the Pentagon, how did it even justify allowing foreign nationals from a country that is a rival or an adversary to work on U.S. systems that are sensitive in the first place?
Here's where we get to the heart of the problem here. Private companies, I don't like it when people on the Hill or in any of the agencies say companies in America need to do the right thing. They should think about national security. I actually don't agree with that. Companies doing the right thing means making money for their shareholders within the law. Now, the problem here is that this particular project, it's not like someone was selling computers and if a Chinese company wanted to buy them, they'd say, well, they're on an approved list. We can sell it to them. We'll sell it into China. That's great. That's what companies are supposed to do. The project that Microsoft was actually hired to do, though, involved supporting the Department of Defense. So the whole essence of the mission is national security. And that's where I find it dumbfounding that they would take a normal business practice saying, let's just outsource this to whoever the cheapest vendor is, and we'll make sure we follow the law. There's this system where there's people that track them and keep an eye on them that are practically minimum wage workers. Microsoft, if it was just helping out a t-shirt company, they could say, hey, we're going to outsource this to China. That's fine. It's not illegal. This is the Pentagon that they're supporting. They should raise the bar much higher and say, we're not shipping this project out to people in the primary rival nation.
Do you think this incident could potentially impact the DoD's relationship with Microsoft going forward?
I think it has. And I just based that on Secretary Hegseth's comment that a full audit is going to be done with no cost to the taxpayers. Well, it's going to cost somebody money. And my guess is that somebody is Microsoft, which means they told them, you're going to look into this, you're going to have a third party investigate it. And there's going to be consequences if, as what I would not be surprised to find out, if there was injection of any kind of malicious code or if there was any kind of exfiltration of data and information that should not have been taken out of the system, out of the cloud.
What would have been the real world impact if there were malicious code left in the system?
You can't begin to measure it. First of all, you have the contingent risk that if there's something bad going on, say in the South China Sea, that there's the ability to affect, turn off, hit a kill switch in the worst case scenario, the non-classified cloud communications, or at least some of it for the Pentagon. And if that were the case, that would be very disruptive, even though it's not kind of an operating system during a time of war. You should know that more than 90%, I've heard numbers of 98 or 99% of all DoD communications are going over public networks or in publicly managed clouds. So if China were able to affect or turn that off in a time of crisis, that would be a major problem. Even otherwise, though, they can be currently culling information about patterns of life, who's traveling where, who's talking to whom, and they can really get inferences about what our own DoD is up to in, say, the preparation or lead up to a conflict or in just normal day-to-day operations.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, if code was left, malicious code left in the system, would it be easy to detect? For example, if a Chinese engineer put it there, how long would it take before U.S. authorities find out?
Yeah, so there's a couple risks here. One is that code was left, and we've got great people to find it, which they now are going to be tasked. So that's going to be part of the mission. The other part is to look at whether there was any exfiltration of data. That's, I think, harder to find, perhaps. But again, the forensic experts, the cyber experts, are really good at that, and they're going to find out, or hopefully find out, if over the past 10 years there was information that was being pulled out that wasn't authorized wasn't supposed to be moving out.
Okay, John, I'll just end with this question. Taking a step back, besides this, are there any other national security vulnerabilities or concerns on the cyber front?
We have seen our communications networks in this country, the ones that were built by the trusted vendors, completely penetrated through the program called Salt Typhoon most recently, and there were other attacks on the FirstNet network. And these are public networks and first responder networks that are really important to American security. China has been in and out of them almost at will. So we've got a lot of work to do to secure networks in this country against our rivals. And the top of that list is certainly China.
Well, okay, John, incredible discussion today. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
An artificial intelligence startup says AI is being weaponized to conduct increasingly sophisticated cybercrimes. The company is warning of an unprecedented evolution in malicious operations that makes defense far and more difficult. A new report from Anthropic describes how criminals are employing advanced models, such as cloud. Bad actors are taking advantage of developments in every stage of an attack, from reconnaissance and credential theft to ransomware and fraud. Researchers said AI tools are now active operators in real-time breaches. Anthropic's report says this represents a fundamental shift in how cybercriminals can scale their operations. Anthropic added that a broader pattern is emerging, where criminals can now use AI to carry out attacks once reserved for sophisticated groups. Coming up after the break, the U.S. economy rebounded in the second quarter better than previously reported. We have that story and more when we return.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Get Labor Day deals and save on everything for your home. They have hundreds of sofas and sectionals with styles you love at unbeatable prices, and they're the only place with top-name recliners starting at just $199. Check out the latest looks in bedrooms and dining rooms and save big. Plus, you don't have to wait. They're all in stock with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out. These Labor Day deals are happening now in every department at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big.
Call 800-210-9106. 800-210-9106.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. And my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
The U.S. economy rebounded in the second quarter better than previously reported. Gross domestic product, which is a reading of all the goods and services produced in the economy, had a 3.3% yearly rate from April through June. This is the second estimate from the Commerce Department, which originally posted an annualized rate of 3%. It's a big jump from the economy's half percentage point drop in the first quarter. Analysts say consumer spending increased in the second quarter despite concerns about the Trump administration's tariff policies. The redistricting fight continues, with Maryland possibly joining the national battle. Democratic State Senator Clarence Lamb has introduced a bill to redraw the blue state's congressional maps. The state's single Republican Congressman, House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris, would likely lose his seat under the proposal. The redrawn map would divide Harris's district and extend its western border to the suburbs of Baltimore, a heavy Democrat region. Lamb says the path to redistricting Maryland won't be easy, but says Democrats have to start somewhere. Maryland Governor Wes Moore, a Democrat, has expressed openness to modifying the state's congressional boundaries. So far, only Texas and California have moved forward with their redistricting plans. And more redistricting news. Louisiana's Attorney General Liz Muriel told the Supreme Court yesterday that redrawing maps based on race is unconstitutional. The comments came as a preview of arguments the state will make in an upcoming election law case. The High Court will rehear Louisiana v. Calais in October. The issue is whether the Voting Rights Act requires the state to create 2 black majority congressional districts, or if doing so amounts to unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. A lower court ordered Louisiana to add a second black district, citing discrimination against black voters, who make up nearly a third of the state's population. But Muriel argues the Constitution sees only American voters. The eventual ruling could reshape redistricting nationwide and affect the balance of power in the closely divided U.S. House. Facebook's parent company Meta is launching a new political action committee in California to endorse candidates. The tech giant says the PAC will support any party who supports artificial intelligence innovation. That means a more lenient stance on regulation. Meta is launching the Mobilizing Economic Transformation Across California Super PAC. A company spokesperson said the group will back candidates for state offices who favor AI development over strict regulation. The Super PAC will also finance candidates who, quote, support and defend the American tech industry both domestically and internationally. Meta noted that the California legislature has already introduced more than 50 AI-related bills so far this year. Those movies and TV shows you've purchased on Amazon don't actually belong to you. Now Amazon is facing a lawsuit over the situation. A proposed class action lawsuit was filed last week in Washington federal court against Amazon, accusing the company of a bait and switch. The person who filed the lawsuit says she purchased episodes of a Nickelodeon TV series in May, but later found her purchases were no longer available. That's due to fine print that states the buyer has agreed to Amazon's terms. The lawsuit is seeking unspecified damages, including damages or alleged intentionally malicious conduct. Meanwhile, YouTube TV subscribers will still be able to watch Fox's content, at least for now. The two companies announced they have reached a short-term extension to their distribution deal as they continue to work on a new agreement. A blackout of all of Fox's content on Google-owned YouTube TV was scheduled to go into effect last night. That is when the current agreement between the two companies expired. The blackout would have affected millions of people across the country. However, neither Fox nor YouTube clarified how long the extension will last. Coming up after the break, a new bill signed to prevent foreign adversaries from owning land in Texas. How does it address the risk of foreign land ownership? And what does it prohibit? Who does it affect? Don't go away for that.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown. Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella.
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way it's down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will visit China next week for the first time in 6 years. He will attend a military parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. This will be Kim's first meeting with a large group of foreign leaders since taking power in 2011. The parade will also host Russian President Vladimir Putin and other pro-Russia and pro-China leaders. Joining us now to discuss this and also a new bill signed to prevent foreign adversaries from owning land in Texas is Adam Savitt, Director of China Policy Initiative at America First Policy Institute. First of all, good afternoon to you, Adam. Good to see you, as always. So as I mentioned just now, both Kim Jong-un and President Vladimir Putin will be in China next week. That's for a military parade. In your view, what is the significance? How important is it?
It's very significant. As you noted, it is the first time that Kim will be meeting with a large group of international leaders on a huge stage here. I mean, China's putting a lot of investment into this 80th anniversary celebration of the defeat of the Japanese, which is a little bit questionable whether the CCP can claim that, since the nationalists were in power at the time in China. But putting that aside, the CCP will be showing off new weapon systems, including anti-drone systems, perhaps new ICBM long-range missiles at this parade. So it's a huge stage and a huge platform. And this will be the first time, actually, that Xi, Putin, and Kim will be together at a meeting as well. Most Western countries are boycotting this meeting due to mostly the Ukraine war is the sticking point. Very important thing to notice, South Korea. Of course, a few months ago, a new president, Lee, came to power, a left-of-center president, and has been doing some interesting flirtation, at least rhetorically, with China, and he was invited, and apparently he did consider going. Now, he won't be going, but a leader of the South Korean National Assembly will be going.
Okay, I think the natural question then to ask is, what is the relationship like? What does this invitation say about Xi Jinping's relationship with Kim Jong-un? China, Russia, North Korea relations. How strong is that alliance?
Sure. Well, it's a very interesting dynamic there. These are all dictatorships. They all are incredibly transactional with their needs in the moment. These four countries are always mentioned together: China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Does it really constitute an alliance or an axis? I would say no. And here's the interesting thing. China technically has a treaty alliance with North Korea, but they've always kept North Korea at a distance, for understandable reasons, because these dictators, all three of the dictators, and most recently the grandson, Kim Jong-un, are very unpredictable, very wild behavior, and are generally considered pariah states. Now, recently, since the Ukraine war, North Korea has had a much closer relationship with Russia because they've had meaningful exchanges that have helped both sides. North Korea has supplied millions of artillery rounds, tens of thousands of soldiers to aid in Ukraine. In the other direction, Russia is providing military technology, perhaps missile technology, shipbuilding, and this sort of thing. So that is a real relationship built on real dividends that both are reaping. So in a way, actually, China in recent months has felt left out of that equation.
Fascinating. So I'll move on to the other topic. We'll leave that for now. Governor Greg Abbott recently signed several bills aimed at protecting Texans from foreign adversaries. Most notably is Senate Bill 17, which bans people and entities tied to China, Russia, Iran, North Korea from buying land. Do you feel, in your view, this was urgently needed?
I would call it urgently needed, but frankly, it's been urgently needed for years. Let's say going back a decade when China first started acquiring large amounts of U.S. land. But this particular bill has been around, or some form of it has been around for 2 or 3 years. Texas only meets, their legislature only meets every 2 years. So back in 2023, a version of this bill was introduced. An important feature of this bill, it covers all land. So I know on this show we've discussed agricultural land and land near military bases, and many of the states have either one of those or a combination of both of those. But some states, and this one passed, have a provision for all real property. So not only just agricultural land or strategic land, all property. Because of that, in 2023, there was a lot of controversy around this, specifically regarding green card holders from these nations. And the Democrats in Texas successfully framed this as infringing on personal rights, to a mortgage, et cetera, for people who may actually be fleeing the regime of China or Russia. So this bill covers, or rather, green card holders are allowed to own land. And that was the important modification that allowed it to go through. But this is one of the toughest laws in the country because it covers all real property.
So, Adam, we talked about this before, but I think it's worth reiterating. Why are assets like farmland, for example, strategically important?
Sure. Well, it's the food supply chain. And here's the thing. People say that there's not that much land owned by China. And in the grand scheme, it's not much, although it is about 500,000 acres. But much of this is used for experimentation, seed growing, pesticide tests, and this sort of thing that has been proven to be a source of IP theft for Chinese nationals who are in the United States, stealing this seed technology. And that's the way it interferes with the food supply chain. And in addition, in proximity to military bases, these patches of land, whether they be 5 acres or 1,000 acres, they become platforms for surveillance and sabotage of military installations and intelligence installations. I used to have to speak in the abstract. In the last few months, we've had a very concrete example of what this is, and that is when Ukraine was able to place drones near Russian military bases, and they destroyed billions worth of dollars, irreplaceable strategic bombers in the Russian arsenal. If China was able to place drones on this agricultural land near our military bases, they could certainly pull off a similar feat.
Are there any signs to you, perhaps, that other states are likely to follow in Texas's lead?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, dozens of them have been trying for quite a while. But as I mentioned, yeah, most of them are specifically either a combo of ag land and strategic sites or one or the other. This may be the most significant one in that all real property was covered. So in that sense, it may be a pioneering case that other states will seek to either amend their laws that they already have in place or start a new law. But for example, in Arkansas, they've had the law in place since 2023. They have enforced it, and they have pushed a Chinese-owned company called Syngenta off of agricultural land. Now, could they amend that to make it all real property? Perhaps, but this has been going on for years. I'm happy to say it's been evolving and getting more sophisticated, and the fact that this Texas law went through is indeed a landmark.
So, in your view, Adam, should the U.S. stop foreign purchases of land completely, or should it prioritize which lands require stricter oversight and which require less?
Well, see, it's important. So because you said foreign land, now that would include all land, and that would include all countries, and that's a different question. I've learned over time we got to be really precise with this because I've heard from some farmers they don't appreciate foreign ownership of land and the way that affects them as far as land prices and that sort of thing. But I would advocate the adversaries, whether that's an adversary list as defined by the federal government, such as the Commerce Department, or that is delineated in writing, as the Texas law is, those four countries, that I absolutely would advocate for those countries to be banned from all real property. But as far as other foreign countries, there are
okay, Adam.
needed.
Sorry, finish your thought, please. Sorry.
Oh, that's it. Just that I wouldn't say a ban on all foreign countries, just the adversary countries.
Okay, just one last thing. Is there anything that you see that can be done more to prevent this from happening in the future, this purchases of land?
Yeah, I mean, I would advocate for a continued proliferation of these laws in the states. We have yet to find a federal solution, and that's going to be the real key to do this permanently. We luckily have a Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, in place at the federal level who takes this very seriously. She has a new National Farm Security Action Plan in place. I look forward to that being enforced.
Well, okay, Adam, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Okay. Thank you, Don.
Vice President J.D. Vance is in Wisconsin now touting Trump's tax cuts for working families. Let's take a look.
Taxes by historic margins every single day, as we just did. For years, American leaders would ask you to work overtime, would ask you to spend even more time away from your family, and every hour that you spend at the job, they would reach further and further into your pocket. How nice is it to have a President of the United States who cut taxes on overtime, because we believe that if you spend an extra hour at work, the government ought to keep its hands the hell out of your pocket. Is that right? We know about 5%, about 1 in 20 Wisconsin workers rely on tips to bring home the bacon for themselves and their families. How nice is it to have a President of the United States and Republican majorities in Congress that cut taxes on tips instead of forcing our waitresses and service professionals to deal with the IRS. We ought to make it easier for folks to get by, which is exactly what we did when we cut taxes on tips, and Wisconsin families are going to be the beneficiaries. What the working families tax cuts did is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. It let you keep more money in your pocket. It rewarded you for building a business or working at a business right here in the United States of America. It makes it easy for you to take home more of your hard-earned pay, and it makes it easier. If you're an American manufacturer or an American business, it makes it easier for you to build your facility or expand your facility right here in the United States of America. I happen to believe that it's the dumbest decision we made as a country to reward foreign companies with putting stuff overseas instead of right here in places like Wisconsin. Well, now we have a different president with a different attitude. If you're building in the United States of America, if you're working in the United States of America, if you're trying to earn a decent living right here at home, we are going to fight for you every single day. But if you build crap overseas and try to undercut the wages of American workers, you're going to pay a big fat tariff before you bring it back in to the United States of America. Now, I was talking with a Fox News host earlier, and I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. I'm going to make him stand up and be recognized. You guys know Will Kane. Will, a lot of us watch his show. He's doing a good job. You know, what I told Will earlier is that all these problems are interconnected. Why is it that we allowed these Mexican drug cartels to bring this poisonous fentanyl into our communities? Why is it that so many people lost hope and started taking that fentanyl? Why is it that we had a government that seemed to care more about illegal immigrants than they did about their own citizens? It's all connected, because when they shipped your job overseas in the last administration or in administrations that came before it, what they also did at the same time is they allowed those cartels to come in to our country and take advantage of our communities. So what the working class families tax cut does is, yes, it gives you more take-home pay. Yes, it cuts taxes on overtime. Yes, it cuts taxes on tips. But it also gives our incredible law enforcement over $100 billion to get those drug cartels the hell out of our country once and for all. It's very simple. Donald Trump's Republican Party wants very simple things for this country. We want you to be able to earn a good living in your community. We want you to be able to walk down a city street in broad daylight without getting mugged. We want you to be able to take your family out to a nice meal wherever you want to without the fear of violence from criminals, whether they're domestic criminals or international drug cartels. If you work hard every single day, you ought to take as much of your hard-earned pay home as possible. And if you want to raise your children in security and comfort, you ought to send them to a school that gives them a good education instead of an indoctrination. These are very simple things, ladies and gentlemen, and all we needed was better leadership in Washington to deliver it. Now, Representative Van Orden will tell you this, but if you didn't know, that it turned out that we didn't get a single Democrat vote for cutting taxes on tips, cutting taxes on overtime, or increasing the child tax credit. Not a single Democrat in the House or the Senate could actually deign to vote for giving you more of your hard-earned money. And we got to ask ourselves why that is. Because as much as I am proud of what we've accomplished, it would honestly be a little bit easier, wouldn't it, Derek, if the Democrats actually worked with us instead of fighting us every single step of the way. And you're going to see this. We're a little early for campaign season, but in a couple months or maybe about a year, you're going to start seeing television advertisements. And you're going to start seeing Democrats lying about what's in these working families tax cuts. And I'm going to tell you exactly what they're going to say. They're going to tell you that this bill, which gives you more of your hard-earned money, that they opposed it, not because they want to raise your taxes, and they do, but because they're worried about your health care. They are so worried about your health care, in fact, that they want to give more and more of your health care to illegal immigrants. And that's exactly why they voted against this bill. I know we have this beautiful high school class back there. And I'll give you, just from a vice president to the high school seniors, I'll give you guys just a little bit of relationship advice from a man who's been happily married for 11 years. Find yourself somebody who loves you as much as national Democrats love giving health care benefits to illegal aliens. That's my advice for you. Because it is, as far as I can tell, the reason why the National Democratic Party exists. Do you know that this bill makes tens of billions of dollars in investments in our rural health care infrastructure, which was falling apart under the last administration? This legislation guarantees that hardworking Americans are going to have access to their Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits. But what this bill refuses to do, and what Republicans absolutely refuse to do, is to give your hard-earned benefits to people who don't have the legal right to be in this country to begin with. It is very simple. And if you And if you want to protect the people's benefits, if you want to protect rural health care, if you want to make sure that whether you live in a big city or a small town, you have the ability to go and see a doctor, and that is exactly what we want to do, then the first thing you ought to be doing is making sure that the people who get federal health care benefits actually have the right to be in this country in the first place. That is the first and most important step. And that's what this legislation did. So don't believe the lies and don't believe the attacks. What we are doing with this legislation is giving you a tax cut and trying to rebuild the healthcare infrastructure of this country that got decimated under Joe Biden's leadership. But what we are also doing, in order to preserve the benefits that you've paid into for your entire lives, is making sure those benefits only go to our fellow American citizens and not to people who ought to go back to their home country because they're here in this country illegally. It's very simple. And think about this. Think about the math, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot have these health care benefits if you allow tens of millions of people into this country who have no legal right to be here and give them those benefits. We were on the freight train to bankruptcy under Joe Biden's leadership because we had a Democratic Party that didn't care enough about this country to actually enforce our borders. And it's that simple. And so when I see the Democrats, I got to be honest with you, it makes me a little bit angry. When I see Democrats fighting against cutting your taxes and saying it's about health care, it's not about health care for you, it's about health care for illegal aliens. And we happen to believe in a different principle. You ought to keep more of your hard-earned money. That if you work overtime, you ought to be rewarded for it, and that when you pay into the federal system, you receive those benefits and not anybody who didn't pay into them to begin with. So,
and you were just watching at a rally in Wisconsin touting President Trump's policies, the One Big Beautiful Bill and tax cuts, as well as his clampdown on crime. Coming up after the break, a massive Russian attack on Ukraine kills at least 15 overnight. The EU summons Russia's top diplomat after strikes damage an EU building. What we've learned so far, we have it after the break.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming, and no young person is ever turned away. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month to help a young person. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Your gift will show them they're loved. Homeless young people are afraid and alone with nowhere else to turn.
You want to know that there's somewhere you can go that's safe. So the Covenant House did that for us.
Please call now with your gift of $19 a month. We'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. Please don't wait. Your gift is the lifeline a young person needs now. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org. Thank you for saving precious lives.
Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox. That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
Russia launched a large-scale overnight drone and missile attack on Kyiv this morning. Explosions and fires damaged buildings across 7 districts of the city. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for new sanctions on Russia. Here's an update.
Russian forces launched a large-scale drone and missile attack on Kyiv, killing at least 15 people, including 4 children, and injuring dozens on Thursday, Ukrainian officials said. Homes and buildings across 7 districts bore the brunt of the attack. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it showed Russia's answer to diplomacy amid efforts by US President Donald Trump to end the war. He called for new sanctions on Russia, which he said, quote, chooses to continue killing instead of ending the war. Rescue operations were underway across the city, with emergency services putting out the fires and sifting through the rubble. As the attack unfolded over 9 hours, some residents of the capital sheltered underground. The Ukrainian Air Force said it downed 563 of 598 drones and 26 of 31 missiles launched by Russia in a countrywide attack. Ukrainian officials said several high-rise apartment blocks had been hit, along with the headquarters of the European Union mission to Ukraine and the British Council. Critical infrastructure such as energy facilities and a railway hub in central Ukraine had also been struck. Russia's defense ministry said its attack hit military industrial facilities and military air bases. Moscow has regularly denied targeting civilians, but dozens have died in recent months during strikes on densely populated areas. Moscow's defense ministry said Russian air defense systems intercepted and destroyed 102 Ukrainian drones overnight, which had targeted at least 7 regions.
Now, if you love great music, here's something special. The NTD International Chinese Vocal Competition is taking place this weekend, August 30th and 31st. Top Chinese vocalists from around the world will bring bel canto to life, performing everything from Western opera to Chinese art songs. It's a unique opportunity to experience tradition and artistry coming together, all at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Don't miss it. Coming up, natural gas consumption in the United States is forecast to hit a new record, but why is natural gas losing market share to coal, solar, and wind, despite overall consumption growth? We have that and more when we return.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer.